Hello and welcome back, and that's right, we want to compare Terramaster and Synology again, and this time we are looking at 4-bay NAS solutions. Today we're looking at the DS423 Plus, released in spring 2023 from Synology, and we're looking at this, the F4-423, released in the second half of 2022 from Terramaster, and hopefully by the end of this video, I will have helped you decide which one of these two best deserves your money, but more importantly, your data. But before we go any further, a quick disclaimer straight off the bat. Number one, none of these arrive with hard drives included. You can look online and find little upgrades and accessories, and some retailers will sell these devices with hard drives pre-populated, but by default, and all the pricing and everything we're going to talk about today, is these devices unpopulated. So think of it just normally bog standard hard drives. Now, performance will be higher and there are advantages to using certain multimedia in different combinations, and that's going to be down to you, but we're not going to let that affect our outlook on what these two devices can do. It's very important, and that will become particularly important later on. Secondly, when we're looking at these two, and again I mentioned this in the 2-bay video, but I'm going to mention it again, between these two, it's going to be about software versus hardware, and that is going to be the overarching theme of this video. So I apologise for just how much I'm going to hit the hammer on that, but I think that is the big TLDR takeaway here. It is, if you are interested in hardware, this is the one you're going to want, and if you want software, this is the one you're going to want. But for now, let's crack on with our first section, where we're going to talk about the difference between these two, more importantly, which one is best for our want. But before we get to the price, I think it's important that we talk about whichever one of these two you go for. Regardless of that, you're going to be getting a very good hardware and software combined solution. So before we get on to what makes them different, let's talk about what they've got in common, what makes them the same, and ultimately, what are you guaranteed to get? Well, you're guaranteed to get a 4-bay NAS solution with at least 2 years of manufacturer's warranty. You're also going to get two NAS solutions that, although they're 4-bay, they are 4-bay that also have M2 NVMe bays inside that can be utilised for both caching and for storage pools. More on that later on. They also both arrive with support of fluid RAID systems. What does that mean? Well, not only can you populate both of these with as little as one drive on day one if you choose, but you can mix and match those drives if you choose in a way that traditional RAID configurations like RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6 do not allow you to do. Normally in a RAID, when you use drives and the drives are different capacities, a traditional RAID system will force you to have every drive the exact same size. So if you had three 1TB drives and three 1TB drives and a 10TB drive, it would only treat that other drive as a 1TB. Fluid RAID systems, what they do is they look at the drives that are inside and then save the largest drives in a safety net. So what do I mean by that? Inside this system, if you put a 1TB, a 2TB, a 3TB and a 4TB, it would have to ensure that there is 4TB of safety net for that RAID. But if later down the line you wanted to put in three 10TB drives that were on offer, which would be a bit mad, or if you went ahead on day one and just put in a couple of 4TB drives and later down the line during a sale you put in two 10TBs, Fluid RAID systems like SHR and T-RAID will allow you to mix and match those drives and take advantage of larger capacities in those next drive environments in a way that normal RAIDs can't, and you will get that with both of these. Also with these, you get a few different mobile applications you can use, more on the Synology, more on that later on. You can access them in Windows or Mac or Android or Linux environments. There's also a full graphical user interface that can be accessed via the web browser, I hate seagulls, and a myriad of applications and services that you can install inside with support of things like BTRFS or ext4 as your file system of choice. There's also backup applications, multimedia applications, and office and business applications available on both of them. Again, probably a lot more on the Synology, more on that later on. Ultimately, if you're going to be utilising it for first-party tools or third-party tools like Plex Media Server, both of these will facilitate that very, very well to a greater or lesser extent. And overall, they are great NAS solutions that are available right now at a not dissimilar price point. But that's enough about what they've got in common. Let's get back to the pricing and the value of these two NASes. Now, regardless of whatever retailer you choose to go to get hold of either one of these, the price points are actually not too dissimilar. Definitely the Terramaster is the cheaper of the two, but not by an outlandish margin. What do I mean? Well, the DS423 knocks around, give or take, for about 499 nicker. Again, depending on your currency of choice, depending on tax and shipping where you are, that is going to fluctuate ever so slightly, but it's about 499 nicker. Now, the Terramaster retails for about 449 to about 459. Again, little margin there, but I will say that in terms of special offers, be it the big ones like your Prime Days, your Black Fridays, or just your general here and there periodic offers, the Terramaster is on offer a great deal more. Not only because it's been in the market a little bit longer, by about 4 to 6 months, but also Terramaster generally is quite, cutthroat about their pricing, and they can really bring things down quite small a lot of the time, and they are selling more on hardware than the software, it has to be safe to say. So overall, when it comes to the actual money you're paying, the Terramaster wins this round. We do have to talk about value, which things do change ever so slightly there, but I will say, at least in terms of how much you are paying off the bat, if that's really, really important to you and you're not that fussed about software, definitely the Terramaster wins both the price and the value point there. But we've really got to focus a little bit more on that value structure, because the way these two devices have been developed and what you get for your money and how those two things are valued up, definitely at the R&D at the background, things can change. Let's talk about the hardware on offer from the 423 and the 423 Plus and the 423. Now, I will say, when it comes to the hardware, that although in my 2-bay comparison, which again I'm not 100% sure is live yet, the hardware was incredibly different, things are a little closer between these two, but still, when you really break it down to the hardware on paper, the Terramaster has the better hardware overall. Now, if we start with the Synology arriving with an Intel Celeron processor, they both do, so things like Plex Media Server and any kind of multimedia conversion, transcoding or graphical processes are going to be good here. The Celeron inside this is the J4-125, a quad-core CPU, 4-core, 4-thread, with a 2.0 GHz clock speed that can be burst up to 2.7. Also, that integrated graphics is about 350 to 750 MHz. It also arrives with 2 GB of DDR4 memory soldered to the board and can be upgraded to a maximum 6 GB, which is weird, via a single SODIMM slot there, even though that CPU supports up to 8 GB officially. Because of the 2 GB being soldered and a slot being available where you can only put in a 4 GB, that's how you only end up with 6 GB overall there. That CPU has been around since 2019. Arguably, it is showing its age. Even Intel have long since abandoned it in favour of refreshing newer Celeron processors, as Intel slowly but surely start to pretty much remove the Pentium and the Celeron naming from their portfolio in favour of horrible IDs. But alongside that CPU memory combo, the system also arrives with 4 bays of SATA storage. It also has 2 M2 NVMe bays on the base, Gen 3x1, with each of those allowing you to use them as caching within DSM or as storage pools. Although you can't run DSM completely from them, you can install individual applications on an M2 NVMe storage pool. But just bear in mind that with this device, you can only use Synology's M2 NVMe's for pools. You can use third-party WD and Seagate ones for caching, but you cannot use them for storage pools. The system won't let you proceed beyond that. On the rear, we can see that on the back of it, we've got a couple of 1 gig Ethernet ports there. So again, link aggregation port trunking or SMB multi-channel will allow you to get up to 2 GBE, or around about 219 to 240 at the very top end. 220 megabytes per second there. We've also got a USB 3.2 Gen 1 port here, so 5 gig transmission speeds, one on the front, one on the back there. That's really it for the hardware. It's well designed, it's a very pretty case, I'd say, between the two of them. I definitely think that chassis design is the more appealing of the two, but overall that hardware is looking a little underwhelming in 2023. And on top of that, this largely trims the wings and kind of brings the expectations lower than what we saw in the 2020 released Synology DS423, a very popular NAS indeed. Now, when I say the Terramaster has better hardware, by that what I mean is every single thing that I just described about this in terms of hardware is better on this, with the exception of the chassis design. What do I mean by that? Well, It's got an Intel Celeron processor, sure, but it has the Intel N5105, a quad-core newer generation Intel Celeron processor, quad-core 4-thread, but a higher clock speed of a burst of up to 2.9 GHz from that initial 2.0. The integrated graphics are of a higher caliber, I believe going up to 8 to 850 megahertz there on that embedded graphics processor within the CPU. Also the memory arriving with 4 gig of DDR4 memory that could be upgraded to 32 gig officially. Now, a quick note on that. Officially, that CPU, that CPU supports up to 16 gig, but although you can put 16 gig in this, Terramaster do state that if you use their modules, because of the way they've set up the device, you can use up to 32 gig and it won't invalidate your warranty or support. I don't know how I feel about that, but still at the same time, if they're prepared to back that 32 gig, then they can back up their claims that it can utilize the 32 gig in their infrastructure. We got to give them at least the benefit of the doubt there, because at least you're not invalidating the system. Alongside that, there's a 2 NVMe slot inside that are Gen 3 times 1, although there are reports of larger devices having Gen 3 times 2 on the same architecture, but at least those M2s can be used for both caching and pulls respectively. But more importantly, you're not restricted to just their own SSDs, because they don't have any. You can use WD, Seagate, you can use SanDisk, use Samsung, used a lot for storage pools or caching. Something that Synology is being very, very steadfast to not allow users to be able to do with the hardware. Now, in terms of ports and connections, the system has not only better USB ports with 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 USBs that support up to 10 gig performance there, so twice the performance bandwidth possible with supported external drives, but those USBs can also be used with expansion devices. There is a 2, a 4, a 6, and I believe even an 8-bay expansion device coming soon that allow you to expand the storage of this 4-bay exponentially, utilizing that 10 gig USB connection into this. Now, not only does Synology not support USB expansions, favouring eSATA expansions with their DX517 series, but they are not supported on this. If you want to use Synology 5-bay expansions, you have to go for things like the DS923 or the older generation device. This 4-bay cannot be expanded beyond those 4 bays of storage. Also, the system has 2 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports there on the rear, which means that, again, with support of link aggregation, port trunking, or SMB multi-channel, allows this to achieve speeds at around 5 to 550 megabytes per second externally. Remember, largely dwarfing the potential 2 to 220 megs there on the Synology. On top of that, those USB ports also support network adapters. USB to 2.5G adapters you can pick up now for about 20 nika. USB to 5 gig adapters that you can pick up for about 50-60 nika. So again, huge amount of network upgrade and performance benefits that are not supported or available on the Synology platform. Finally, there's an HDMI output, which is largely useless outside of normal troubleshooting and debugging with the Mobo, but you can install third-party OSs on this, more on that later on. They allow you to take advantage of that USB. Ultimately, between the two of them, in terms of hardware, this is just superior in every single way. And remember the parity on those price points, with this arriving a smidge lower in price than that of the Synology. So again, if your priority is hardware, bingo bongo, Terramaster wins the day in practically every way, with the exception maybe of design, because they really like that Synology chassis. But I think we're going to have to turn the table somewhat when we start talking about the software. Now, those with even the most cursory understanding or research into the world of NAS will know that when it comes to NAS software, Synology are absolutely killing it. They're pretty much the market leader. And DSM, I would compare to things like Microsoft's Windows 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever you want to say, 9, or even Mac OS X. It is that well developed. It is intuitive, and it is the feeling and vibe of an operating system accessible via a web browser. It's that intuitive and responsive, and with an enormous arrangement of third-party support as well as first-party apps that outnumber any other platform. It is genuinely glossy, slick, and impressive as all hell. And again, if you're running an iOS device, an Android device, a Windows desktop, a Windows laptop, a MacBook, Mac Tower, Ubuntu, Linux, any iOS you're running, there are apps and services. Hell, if you're running an Amazon Fire Stick, a Google Home, Amazon Alexa, there are Synology apps and services that allow you to integrate your data and tailored access to your data on the Synology platform on all of those client devices, alongside a huge range of impressive AI supported services, such as in their Synology Synology Photos application for AI photo recognition. There is their surveillance platform, one of the best, I would argue, in the world, with Surveillance Station there in version 9.1. There are even range of cameras as well you can get for these devices. 2 camera licenses included with that device. Then you've got the multimedia suite with Video Station, challenging things like Plex, MB, and Jellyfin with metadata scraping and integrated hardware transcoding and encode options to utilize that and harness the hardware inside this device that much better. I hate seagulls. Then Synology's collaboration suite of Synology Chat, Synology Drive, Synology Calendar, Synology Mail, huge range of apps and services there, and the multimedia suite to work with it. Synology Drive, if you are a photo video editor or running a Mac environment, or you want to run a Windows environment with file streaming and file pinning, if you want to interact with the NAS in the most efficient way possible, whilst utilizing your own OS client tools with the Synology working around them, Synology Drive is game changing. And again, if you've never used it, try it out, and if you've used it, you'll know what I mean. Overall, with applications like Active Backup Suite, Hyper Backup, and more, I could go on for ages. It is just a superior software platform, and an enormous percentage, I would argue 70, maybe even 75 to 80% of the budget of this device, you are paying for the software more than the hardware. Now, that was an incredible introduction there to the Synology software, right? Let's be fair to the Terramaster platform. TOS is good, and if you removed DSM from the equation, it would probably rank pretty high in terms of NAS software in the market right now, in terms of intuitiveness, user friendliness, and design. It is currently in version TOS 5.1. It has got lots of first-party applications, but a wider degree of support of third-party apps, I would argue, between them. There is support of BTRFS. There is support of their own AI photo recognition application, Terra Photos. They've got the backup applications there for streaming and creating a multi-site backup operation within the device. They lack a lot of the mobile applications of a lot of Synology and even QNAP. And even desktop client tools, there isn't as many available on their platform as others. Likewise, if you are going to interact with this device using third-party tools, you will be interacting with it far more in a basic storage way rather than a tailored way. The TOS platform is a great deal more evolved, and I would argue has developed very, very quickly in the comparative short time that it's been around compared with Synology's platform, but I cannot say that it is as good as DSM. Now, we've got to throw Terramaster a bone here, because as I mentioned earlier on, their platform is a great deal easier to use with third-party OSs. What do I mean by that? Well, the initial installation is via a little USB inside. If you choose to, that USB you can replace with an Unraid installation. If you want, you can install TrueNAS on this if you choose that ZFS platform, even on this rather modest hardware spec comparative. Putting TrueNAS on this, therefore allowing you to run a compact TrueNAS server without the hassle of building from scratch, and then getting a device where all of the warranty is combined in one solution, is really, really impressive. And that support of third-party OSs, although not something strictly officially supported, is something Terramaster have never really been prohibitive about. I've made plenty of videos on how to install Unraid, TrueNAS, or anything like that on this device, even Proxmox, and they've never batted an eye. So again, the support of third-party OS on this, I do think, gives it a little bit more credence in the software section when you compare TOS against DSM, but still, overall, in the same way that Terramaster absolutely domineered the hardware section of this video, Synology absolutely champion it on the software. Which brings us to our conclusion. And overall, as I mentioned in the introduction, seriously, I hate seagulls. When it comes to it, hardware versus software, you cannot question the sheer level of hardware value that the Terramaster F4 is providing you. It's bringing pretty much every box being ticked in the current generation of hardware demands of a compact NAS user that just wants a server to migrate away from the cloud and just wants to know they're getting value for money for the hardware and longevity and future proofing. However, when it comes to the software and the Synology side, for those that want a system that they don't want to have to interact with regularly, that wants to be responsive, that does what it says it does on says it will on the tin, and is a set up and forget solution that will wrap itself around your way of working, it is a great alternative to the likes of Google Drive and Dropbox and the like, and also that software. Some of it is genuinely innovative in a way that will make you move away from your third-party software. What do I mean by that? If you're a Google Workspace or an Office 365 user, yes, this will work alongside and in conjunction with it, thanks to Active Backup Suite, which is a completely free inclusive application. But they have their own Office suite of applications, Synology Drive replacing a lot of those features and services, as well as Synology Chat that allows you to replace things like WhatsApp or Skype with mobile and desktop apps too. And just generally, buying the Synology platform isn't just about working alongside your existing apps and services, but it'll also replace some of those existing subscription platforms with an all-inclusive single ecosystem solution for you and your data, be it for home or business. And that's why hardware versus software is the overall takeaway from this video on the F4-423 versus the DS423. Those names are way too similar, right? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, we've got hopefully live now, maybe in the next few days, a written comparison of these two NASs in the description below. So I recommend you check that out. Otherwise, if you want to learn more, we've got links to other guides and reviews on these in the description, or a link to NAS Compare's free advice section. If you go to NAS Compare's the site, big blue button on the right hand side of the page will answer all your questions there. Alternatively, you can use our community forum, Ask NAS Compares. Again, lots of community support. And talking of community, you can head to our Discord if that helps you even more. But if you found this video helpful, and if you were going to shop at Scan, eBuyer, B&H, Amazon, Box, any of those retailers, and these two things are true, that you enjoyed the video and you're going to shop there anyway, please use the links in the description to take you to those stores. Not only will it not cost you anything, and you just click it and it will take you to your store of choice, but once you get there, anything you buy, and I really do mean anything that you buy, will result in a small fee returning to here at NAS Compares, and it allows us to keep doing what we do. It's only me and Eddie here doing all of this, a video a day, an article a day, and the free advice sections there. So that allows you to passively support what we do and content creators in the most passive way possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.